Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about Columbus, and this is a history assessment of thinking. So it's how we look at the past as historians. So let's talk about that a little bit. So we study history because what happened to a society affects what will happen today and in the future. History is more than just studying what happened in the past. When you study a historical event, you also study a society's culture, religion, politics, and economics. That's why we call it social studies, because it's bigger than just history. Historians look for causes and effects that help to explain how and why events happened. They try to see the past through the eyes of the people who lived it. When they study the past, historians ask themselves questions. The answers to the questions help historians draw conclusions about the past. For example, historians ask questions about how societies are similar and different. They ask how leaders governed societies. A major part of this is looking at the surrounding circumstances, which is called context of an event, to understand a person's potential motivations. So, how do we understand the past? First, you're going to think about all these questions or topics that a historian might consider when trying to analyze a historical document or source. So once we ask those questions, what is it that we're looking at? So the historians use tools to help them do their job. Some of these tools are primary sources. A primary source is something written or created by a person who saw or witnessed a historical event or lived it. Letters, diaries, speeches, and photographs are examples of primary sources. Artifacts, such as tools, clothing, and buildings, are also primary sources. Now, oftentimes primary sources are considered the best because they occurred at the time of the event. However, sometimes the people living back then had a bias or an agenda of something they wanted to do or make people believe, so they're not always reliable. Other tools historians use are secondary sources. They are written after a historical event by people who did not see the event. Books and paintings that are based on primary sources and appear after an event are examples of secondary sources. Another tool that historians use is oral history. This is made up of all the unwritten verbal accounts of events. It's like when you get a story from your grandmother. Historians use an oral history especially when studying cultures that have no written records. Oral histories include the stories, customs, and songs that people in a culture have passed down from generation to generation. Historians use evidence from primary sources, secondary sources, and oral histories to answer their questions. They have to choose what information is most important and trustworthy as evidence. Historical evidence is not always simple. Sometimes what historians thought to be true turns out to be false. Sometimes historians come to different conclusions using the same evidence. So it takes a really good critical look at all of the evidence and all the information to come to these conclusions. So it's never just like a cut and dry right or wrong answer. It's trying to figure out the whole thing, looking at the big picture. So today you're going to look at Columbus and Columbus Day, because we're starting this new unit on colonialism. So first we're looking at what kind of sources these different parts are, primary or oral or secondary. And there's a true-false question to answer. And then you're looking at a few different pieces of information. So this is an excerpt from President Benjamin Harrison's proclamation of Columbus Day as a national holiday, which didn't happen until 1892. That's 400 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So there's his declaration right there. And I want you to kind of think about why he might have decided to make Columbus Day a holiday. What was the context there? What were his motivations? So there's four facts, and then you're going to choose one and then explain why you think that might help explain what you're trying to say. So this is called a historical assessment of thinking. You're really trying to see the big picture here. Good luck.